Everybody, and welcome back to Trudge, a journey to being recovered. My name is Dexter. I am a recovered drug addict alcoholic. Welcome back to the program. Welcome to the season of autumn. We're getting dangerously close to about a year. I've been doing this, and we're almost done. It won't quite meet the 1 year time frame that I put on it. We'll finish a little bit sooner, but all in all, this has been a good experience for me, and hopefully you, the viewer, this has been a good experience for you as well. We have about a month left. We are up to chapter 11, A Vision for You. This is my favorite chapter by far of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Hoping to this point your spiritual experience has taken hold, you're feeling good, you're living altruistically, relying on God, not on others, all the things that we've been talking about since day one. So we're on page 151. We're going to go ahead and get started with our third step prayer. For those of you who care to join, it is highlighted pink on page 63. For those of you who have just tuned in today and just started the work, and let's take a second and invite the God of our understanding in and see how far we can get today, shall we? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Thanks for those of you who joined in. Let's get started. Chapter 11, A Vision for You, page 151. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and a colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. Think about your last days. I know when I think about my last days, there was nothing, about companionship or colorful imagination. I had to drink, I had to drug, I was isolating, and it was not used as a social lubricant at all. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never, and the word never is going to be highlighted orange, never could we recapture the great moments of the past, always chasing that first high, chasing that first drunk, okay? There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. Always thinking that, one day we'll be able to drink like we used to. Many of us, I know for myself, I drink myself from a moderate drinker into a hard drinker into a real alcoholic. Same thing with drug use and things like that. Always thinking that it would be different. Always thinking that one day I'll be able to go back and partake in these, habitual things with the regularity and not having to deal with the major consequences that were coming that I was having now, whereas I wasn't having them in the past. The obsession of the alcoholic, of the drug addict, always thinking that it will be different. That's what the book is trying to convey here. Okay, it says there was always one more attempt and one more failure. I can do it this time, or I'll just drink one, or I'll just smoke on the weekends. You know what I mean? Or only at weddings, or, there's a chapter in this book called More About Alcoholism where they talk about the alcoholic mind and how, to drink or not to drink, swearing on a solemn oath, only on the weekends, only when we travel, things like that. It never, ever, ever, once you cross into that realm, will you get to the point where you're able to drink or drug successfully like you may have used to prior to putting yourself beyond human aid. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society and from life itself. That was my story. I used to be a social drinker and partier, and at the end, I didn't want anybody around. It was more about getting my fix so I could function. It had nothing to do with the social aspect of my life. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens, and the word denizen just means, indignant, somebody who's just kind of hanging out. Okay, of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. I did this in every aspect of my disease, whether it was drugs, alcohol, sex, everything. I always crossed my lines and ended up going places that I never thought I would end up being in an effort to get these things that I thought I needed. Okay? Momentarily, we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen. And these four horsemen are going to be underlined: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. So when you hear them talk about the four horsemen, they talk about things in this book in force. You know what I mean? Patience, tolerance, kindliness, love as some of the spiritual principles that we should be asking our higher power to help us live by. You know, the four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. I understand, absolutely. Now, and then a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. Okay, so, it's just that continuation of the spiritual malady. The abstinence that we sometimes are able to put together without being recovered more than likely always ends. Because left to our own devices, we can't keep the drink or the drug out of our mouths, out of our systems. If we could, we would. So I remember being dry in that capacity, and things are getting better. I'm getting healthier. The white of my eyes is coming back. I'm not taxing my liver so much, but I was just not putting the drugs and the alcohol in my system. And to be recovered, that's a whole different story, okay? It's really a matter of, where are you living in? Convincing others, or are we living in self-honesty? And the self-honesty was that, more times than not, my abstinence was predicated on keeping my wife or, keeping my job. I wasn't really looking at the fact that I had a serious problem. It was just about, I'm going to put this down for now so things get better. And things got better, and then I always went back. And I did this back and forth with different substances for decades, okay? This next sentence, or two sentences, is going to be highlighted orange. It says, he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness as such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. Okay, that's that internal bottom that we're talking about here, okay? Just can't live with it, can't live without it. People who are strong-willed, have good lives, but are alcoholics, drug addicts in this position actually may be contemplating suicide. This is just a continuation of the spiritual malady that's on page 52. You could just take this paragraph and stick it to the end of that one, and many of us can add to it some of our own experiences that the book hasn't talked about. It can just be increased ad infinitum, okay? We have shown how we got out from under. You say, yes, I am willing. But am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum? Like some righteous people I see, and some people believe that in an effort to be recovered, you're not going to ever have any fun. Your life is going to be boring. All the things that you used to do and all the feelings you used to have when intoxicated, when high, you'll never have those again. I'm here to tell you, you're going to have them, but they're going to be pure and they're going to be even better. I have more fun now as a recovered person than I've ever had in my entire life. I just see things differently. Things feel different. Things taste different. Everything is different. I'm not looking for something to put inside me to change my mood. I just feel good all the time. I radiate from the inside out. That's part of the promises that this book has to offer to those who work the 12 steps, live them, and then continue to give back to those who still suffer. Okay? It goes on to say, I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? Yeah, absolutely we have a substitute. It's the program of action that's been written in this book. The next paragraph is going to be highlighted yellow. I love yellow because it equals the promises. It equals the gold. It says, yes, there's a substitute and is vastly more than that. This is POI yellow. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. This is one of my favorite sentences in the whole book. It is highlighted yellow. It says, the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find fellowship, and so will you. So there, there is some fun to be had. Absolutely. The fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, of Narcotics Anonymous, and a lot of these fellowships that I've frequented in my past, there are good people in there. I just didn't know how to differentiate the program from the fellowship. The fellowship is never going to be able to keep me sober. That's where that boredom and that worry gets to be released, because now you surrounded yourself by other people who understand the pain that you've gone through. You're never alone. There's fellowship no matter where you go in this world. I mean, this Alcoholics Anonymous is everywhere almost. It's like very, very few places you can go and not be able to tune in and tap into someone just like you. However, they will never be able to keep you clean and sober. It will never happen. That's been my experience. A real alcoholic left to his own devices has placed himself beyond human aid, and the fellowship is nothing but a group of humans. My therapist is a human being. My doctor is a human being. The pastor at my church is a human being. Not to knock any of those things. Those are all wonderful things. Those are all wonderful people. But I will never, ever, ever back off the fact that those things will never keep you sober. That's what Bill's trying to convey to us in the book. A spiritual experience is absolutely necessary. It's been written all over this book, and we've talked about it for months on end now, okay? It says, how is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? You're going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, and I have the words near you highlighted orange, because they're right next door to you probably. I mean, an alcoholic is not hard to find. A person in recovery, they're everywhere. I mean, it's really... these fellowships and programs have grown so huge that I'm really hard-pressed to think that there aren't places where they are. I mean, just Google AA.org and look at the meeting lists that are all over the United States, all over the world. I mean, we are out there, okay? If you really want help, these people won't be hard to find. So near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands, I'd say. High and low, rich and poor, these are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them, and with new and wonderful ties, you will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. This next sentence is going to be highlighted orange. It says, then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. That's just so important. Again, just kind of reiterating how important it is to be able to give of yourself and help other people. It helps them. You stay recovered. Altruism is one of the hugest focal points of what this program is predicated on. Not giving back, diminishes your spiritual, fulfillment. It really keeps you from being as fully recovered as you could potentially be. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. I have that underlined. Love thy neighbor as thyself. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that these things have happened among us, and they can happen with you. You should wish them above all else and be willing, and the word willing is going to be circled. You should be willing to make use of our experience. We are sure they will come. The words we are sure are circled. Okay, and we're sure of this because this has been the experience that we've had. When people are willing to go to any lengths to get the spiritual experience, this is here for them. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. The word proves is going to be underlined. And I believe the age of miracles is definitely still with the original program. It's with me. There's no question about it. The man that I am able to be today, it only happened because I did this work. A person that doesn't cheat, lie, steal, manipulate. I'm able to hold down a relationship, a real relationship predicated on honesty, and not blow that. I can be a father to my son. I have a key to the establishment where I work. I would never care about any of these things before. All that mattered was I wasn't putting alcohol in my system, and that was enough until the day came where it wasn't enough. So our own recovery proves that. There's no question about it. Seeing people that I've walked through this program still be recovered proves that. Seeing that the program of action that our predecessors laid out and bound, and so we could have it too, decades later, still working for those people who do the work, proves that it works if you're willing to put the effort in. Our hope is that when the chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, and the words we are sure are going to be circled, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. The word must is going to be circled. And again, for those people that must find a way out, there's an AA meeting out there for you. There's no question about it. If you want the help, there's a place to go. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea how we approach and aid others to help. Suppose that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here is a brief account. So we're going to just reiterate, summarize, like we have earlier in the book, some more of AA history. Years ago in 1935, one of our members made a journey to a certain western city. From a business standpoint, his trip came off badly. He had been successful in his enterprise. If he had been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important. So this is one of our co-founders, Bill W., that they're speaking about. But his venture wound up in a lawsuit and bogged down completely. The proceeding was shot through with much hard feeling and controversy. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak, but sober just a few months, I believe he had about 6 months at the time, he saw that this predicament was dangerous. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom? Okay, this is like the birth of Alcoholics Anonymous right here, okay? On a dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby wondering how his bill was to be paid. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside, the happiness, everyone's laughing. There's probably music playing. Everyone's feeling good, okay? 6 months sober, but seeing that's a tricky spot to be in, especially not being home, not being around your wife. You're on the road, you're having money problems, your business ventures come off badly. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? That's where most alcoholics, we run and we drink because we don't want to feel what's real. In there he would find companionship and release. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend. Of course he couldn't drink. But why not sit, hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? After all, had he not been sober 6 months now? Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more. Fear gripped him. He was on thin ice. Again, it was the old insidious insanity of that first drink. The word first is going to be highlighted orange. Okay, it's all about the first one. With a shiver, he turned away and walked down to the lobby to the church directory. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar. But what about his responsibilities, his family, and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well? Ah, yes, those other alcoholics, okay? There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman. His sanity returned, and he thanked God, So at this point, Bill is not thinking about hiding behind alcohol. He's known from multiple, different benders he's been on how that ends. He's been sober 6 months, and he knows from what he's been taught, You know, Evie Thatcher bringing him this gift of work, this giving back to other people, this putting your faith and power into a God of your own understanding, that he needs to go find somebody to help. What can I do for others? That altruistic thought is probably what saved him at that moment and helped formulate this wonderful program and fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Top of page 155. Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair. This person was Dr. Bob Smith, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill W. met Dr. Bob at one of his lowest moments. It was the usual situation: home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. So, Dr. Bob tried 1,000,000 times, just like Bill W. tried 1,000,000 times to get sober on his own, okay? No escape. Painfully, and the word painfully is going to be circled. We want you to understand here, that this is a painful situation that this man was in, that many of us, we were all in, okay? Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. This is very important, that last sentence, okay? And I think that is a big part of what a lot of us at our bottom succumb to. We just think we have a drinking problem. We have this disease. We don't understand what alcoholism really is. The doctor's opinion, more about alcoholism. These are chapters that every alcoholic should read. It really breaks down the phenomenon of craving coupled with the obsession of the mind and what that does to men and women who have placed ourselves beyond human aid, and how that allergy gets triggered, and it's not that we can't stop, you don't want to stop, it's that we can't, okay? When Dr. Bob understands this, then we have this starting point. We have a jumping off point for which him and Bill can get well together, okay? This next paragraph is going to be highlighted in orange. It says, when our friend related his experience, Bill W., the man, Dr. Bob Smith, agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. Okay, he said that. Okay, Dr. Bob is conceding that no amount of willpower he has is going to be able to stop him for any period of time. Okay, this last sentence is going to be underlined as well as highlighted orange. It says, a spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary. And I also have the words absolutely necessary circled. And that's been my story. At the end, bottoming out in AA after 11 years, I had to have a spiritual experience or I was going back out. I was going to be one of the people that I would always see coming in and out, that I would tell myself that will never be me. That was always me. At some point, to get to being recovered, we have to have a moment where we understand that a spiritual experience is absolutely necessary to get well. Okay? You can be sober and not be well. A lot of people would disagree with me on that, and I'm not here to argue that point with anyone, but that's been my experience, and I understand that a lot of people that I've worked with, met over the years, that's been their experience as well. But the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business, only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his plight to people from whom he made his livelihood? He would do anything, he said, but that. Okay, and that's where Dr. Bob is making the mistake. You have to be willing to go to any lengths, okay? Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home. Sometime later, just as he thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on a roaring bender. For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees. He saw that he would have to face his problems squarely, that God might give him mastery, okay? God, circled, underlined, highlighted, orange. One morning he took the bull by the horns and set out to tell those he feared what his trouble had been. He found himself surprisingly well received, and learned that many knew of his drinking. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business. So, I mean, before you even working the steps, he's out there working step 9. He's out there making his amends to people, okay? This is what I'm talking about. Half measures avail us nothing. You can't not be willing to do what it takes to get to this point. What you're telling everyone that you're not willing to do is what's going to keep you from being recovered. When Dr. Bob understood that, that's where things start to get better for him, okay? At midnight, he came home exhausted, but very happy. He has not had a drink since. That was June 6th of 1935. Okay, he died in 1950, so we're 15 years upon his death. As we shall see, he now means a great deal to his community, and the major liabilities of 30 years of hard drinking have been repaired in 4. And, this happens via humility, I mean, it's vital. Dr. Bob saw that, and that's how he went out and he got well. He finally understood what Bill W. was trying to express to him. He saw that they had more things in common than they had not in common, and he accepted the program that Bill W. had accepted, and off they went. And the two of them got well together. But life was not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. I have keep spiritually active highlighted orange. One day they called up the head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic prospect. Today that might be a potential sponsee. She replied, yes, we've got a corker. He's just beaten up a couple nurses, okay? I mean, you have to be pretty bad to be putting your hand on a woman, okay? Beating up nurses, okay? This guy's crazy. This is Bill Dotson we're talking about, alcoholic number 3. We've talked at times about him throughout Trudge from day one. Goes off his head completely when he's drinking, but he's a grand chap when he's sober, though he's been in here 8 times in the last 6 months. Understand he was once a well-known lawyer in town, but now we've got him strapped down tight. Okay, so Bill Dotson, prodigious, prominent lawyer, prodigious, citizen, but off his rocker, off his square completely when drunk, beating up nurses 8 times in 6 months in a hospital. Many of those times got drunk on the way home upon his release. I mean, he's a real corker, okay? Here was a prospect, all right, but by the description, none too promising. The use of spiritual principles in such cases was not so well understood as it is now. But one of the friends said, put him in a private room, we'll be down. 2 days later, a future fellow of Alcoholics Anonymous stared glassily at the strangers beside his bed. Who are you fellows, and why this private room? I was always in a ward before. Said one of the visitors, we're giving you a treatment for alcoholism. The words a treatment for alcoholism are going to be highlighted orange. Okay, and this is the very, very famous picture of the man on the bed that you've seen in a million different AA meetings on walls everywhere. It's a picture of Bill Dotson. He's got a wife beater on, a white shirt, and Dr. Bob and Bill are there with suits on, and they're sitting there, and their 12th is like the original 12-step call. Okay, they're giving him what they would call a treatment for alcoholism. They're going to tell him this is where their war stories come in handy. They identify themselves. They are getting to diagnose him. Obviously, he's the real deal based on what his past has been. And then they're going to tell him about the program of action that has got them to the point where they have not had to drink at all, where that obsession has been lifted, okay? Hopelessness was written large on the man's face as he replied, oh, but that's no use. Nothing will fix me. I'm a goner. The last 3 times I got drunk on the way home from here. I'm afraid to go out the door. I can't understand it. For an hour, the two friends told him about their drinking experiences. Over and over, he would say, that's me, I drink like that. This next sentence is going to be underlined. It says, the man on the bed was told of the acute poisoning from which he suffered, how it deteriorates the body of an alcoholic and warps the mind. There was much talk about the mental state preceding the first drink. The words mental state preceding are going to be highlighted orange, okay? That knot of sane mind that the doctor's opinion speaks about. This is absolute paramount importance that alcoholics want to be recovered. Understand this, okay? Yes, that's me, said the sick man. The very image. You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it'll do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm nobody now. From what you tell me, I know more than ever I can't stop. At this, both the visitors burst into a laugh. Said the future fellow anonymous, damn little to laugh about, that I can see. The two friends spoke of their spiritual experience. The word spiritual experience is going to be highlighted orange. And told them about the course of action they carried out. The words course of action are going to be highlighted orange. Okay, I mean, that's the key right there. The 12 steps, coming to an understanding with a relationship with a power greater than you, and how it happened for them. That's the 12-step call in a nutshell, okay? They talked about their personality changes. They talked about their psychic changes. They let him know how good it is now, and how they drank just like him, if not worse, and how they are now in just such a short period of time, okay? He interrupted. I used to be strong for the church, but that won't fix it. I've prayed to God on hangover mornings and sworn that I'd never touch another drop. But by 9 o'clock, I'd be boiled as an owl. The next day found the prospect more receptive. He had been thinking it over. Maybe you're right, he said. God ought to be able to do anything. Then he added, he sure didn't do much for me when I was trying to fight this booze racket alone. This is POI orange. Should already be highlighted for those of you who have done this work with me from the start. It says on the third day, and the third day are circled, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his creator, saying that he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. The words perfectly willing are circled. The words to do anything necessary are underlined, okay? So he's taking his third step right there. He's already admitted his powerlessness of alcohol. He's conceded to his innermost self that he's just alcoholic. God could and would if he were sought, is basically what's boiling down here for Bill Dotson, okay? He understands that God is or he isn't. He's taken his second step without even knowing it. And then the third day, he's taken his third step. It says, his wife came scarcely, continuing on POI orange, his wife came scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. The words begun are circled, and the words a spiritual experience are underlined. And so, this is the beginning of the turnaround for Bill Dotson and AA number 3 in the grand scheme of watching the program and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous blossom and grow into what it is today, and giving people like myself and other people a chance to live life and not suffer at the hands of this disease. So that's the first half of Vision for You. Next week we will finish this chapter. This is my favorite chapter. I love the fact that it goes and reiterates the history. It talks very clearly about what happened to our predecessors. I believe the integrity of the book should be never compromised. And I think this stuff is so important. I don't take for granted what I've been able to get today because of the people who came before me and the program of action that they laid out in this book. And it's just nice to hear how other people were having their spiritual awakenings. I can't put a finger on when mine happened. I know it wasn't as quickly as 3-4 days, but it has been for some people that I've known. All I know is that when I accepted this program and started to get honest with myself, help others, and really concede to my innermost self that there was other problems going on than just alcohol, and turn it over to a power greater than myself, I went to bed one night and I woke up a different man. Maybe not the same as Bill Dotson, Bill W., Dr. Bob, but in the same capacity, a couple months, and I was a completely different person. And so I'm hoping that this is something that has manifested itself in the lives of you, the viewer, and hopefully that you're understanding what it means to be an alcoholic and how important it is to be of service to those who are out there that need help in an effort to not only keep yourself recovered, but to pay this message forward and have the integrity of this book preserved, so people aren't out there thinking that all they have to do is just not drink if they believe that there's more and they want more. Some people just want that, and that's fine. I have no problems with anyone or how they run their program. This has just been my experience. It just so happens it coincides with the experience of the men and women who wrote this book, and I believe I have a responsibility to speak in terms of how it happened for me. And so that's what I'm trying to do in an effort to help other people not only just be sober, but to be able to practice these spiritual principles in all their affairs and enjoy wonderful lives that, speak to the promises and things that maybe aren't even in this book. I feel better than I've ever felt. And I know it's because of this. So that's all for Trudge this week, everyone. Thank you again for allowing me to serve. Next week we'll finish a chapter. Hope your families are well. Everything is going good here. A bit stressful, kind of crazy, but for the most part, I have zero complaints. I know for me that God's got my back as long as I do the footwork, and so I continue to do that. Until such time next week, hope everybody has a good day. Namaste.